Watch is running a little bit slow. It was fast. It wasn't too bad, but I had to mess around with it, and now it's a little bit too slow. It doesn't take much to get this out of whack. So you just want to look for the regulator. It's right here, and let's see here. Rotate it that way. Let's see if I can get focus on this, or at least closer. And you want to look at this. There's a little spot right up here. This indicator is minus, this is plus. So minus, plus goes this way. So you want to move this. And not, rather, you want to move this guy, the one that's on top. Don't mess with this one. I think this changes the, what do you call it, the beat error. The way the rotator swings one way and the other. You know, equally or more. That would throw it off a bit. This doesn't really affect that this guy here. So it's moving slow, so I need to turn it this way and speed it up just a little. So I'm going to push it and push the lever that way, that lever right there. I was hoping I could see this better on screen, but I can, but it's not the clearest, unfortunately. And if I press focus, it's such an extreme zoom, and it doesn't take much, but trying to see. My eyesight was better if I could get a point of reference, but that's it. If you need to do really, generally, if you need to do finite adjustment, it doesn't take that much effort. A little force really can go a long way. Let's put this back down, drop the gasket back in. I do plan to silicone grease the gasket once I've nailed down the regulation of the watch, and I don't plan to go back into it. Additionally, even if I have nailed it down, before I get my crown, the signed one, which is a little bit smaller, and has the S, of course, on the side, I still will wait till I get that, because I need to get back into the case and hit the little button so I can pull the stem out and crown out and put in a new one. So basically, once everything, the regulation and this crown is finally in, then I'll probably bother with really locking this guy down and putting some silicone grease to, keep the water resistance as good as possible. Now, I don't have a, zoom out a little. I don't have a, time graph. So usually I do this, well, you have to do this, adjusting by hand and more or less by eye, although there are some tools I'm sure that really are sensitive to gauging how much you're turning it, but I don't have that, and I imagine they're quite expensive. And more importantly, I don't have perhaps more importantly, I don't have the time graph which isn't necessary. I've regulated a lot of watches before without one. It's just a longer process because you kind of have to wait to get this running and checking the time again against whatever clock you're setting this to. Anyways, that looks about right. Anyways, and I'm going to pause this, and I need. Okay, I had to pause this, and because I use the clock on my smartwatch to set the time. Anyways, it's pretty much in sync with second by second. This might be just a split hair faster, but basically it's synced. And so we'll have to check back and see after some time on the wrist. Probably at least another hour or two, and see if I notice that it's accelerating or still slowing down. Usually by that time it's a pretty good gauge, but I don't know. Sometimes I might leave it go for a little bit because whatever I've done in the back with the regulator might need to take a little moment for it to really settle in. Anyways, jumbo crown, off topic a bit, but this is a good grip because it's longer, because the normal one is that much more shorter. It pretty much ends where the guards are, so, and the guards do kind of get in the way of you having a good purchase on such a smaller crown, but I still would prefer the sign crown and something a little bit more lower profile for this particular watch. I do have another project coming up where once I switch this, what am I going to do with this, right? So I have a tuna mod basically for this, where you're going to definitely want to replace the crown because the extra shroud is going to make it even more difficult to grab. I think the only way you can get to it is by rotating the bottom mostly, and somehow like the front edge is barely peeking out of the shroud that's specially made for this. And it's not a snap-on one, it's actually metal. It looks pretty good. It really does look like a smaller tuna, and an automatic version at that, without spending well over $1,000. So we'll show you that when I get to it. So yeah, because when I switch the sign crown, this is going to be kind of sitting around in a box somewhere probably, so I might as well use it. Anyways, hopefully we'll see what the regulation goes later. But that's basically how you regulate a watch, and if you need to slow it down, you just push that lever that I was messing with in the back the other direction very lightly. I don't think I've ever showed this, but some people have asked, so there are other videos on YouTube that show this, but I figure, okay, well, I talked about it, why don't I show what I do, and that's basically it. And this is a NH36 movement, but I think pretty much even the 7S26, the standard non-hacking, non-hand winding movement in here is basically the same way as well as NH36. I think if there's an NH35, these are the Seiko generic movements, but they're basically Seikos. Yeah, they just aren't branded that, and they have a different model number for the movement, but reference, or it's a model reference, anyway, movement number, but it's basically the same thing as what is it, 4R15? I forget all of them, but they're all basically the same thing, and the 6R15. Is it NR36? I really can't even remember. But the 4R and the 6R movements are practically the same. The only thing difference, I think, is the amount of complications, whether it has a date window and a day or date window, and the power reserve I think is a little bit higher on the 6Rs. And then there are some other slight variances, like within the 6Rs, possibly the 4Rs, but definitely in 6Rs they have some other movements that have extra complications, like retrogrades or different configurations. But at its core, they're basically the same movements. It's just, I think whatever's after the R designates whatever the number of complications are. Anyways, yep, that's it.